and one's a potential close to a fan favorite franchise, Halloween. They remade it again.
Hi, and welcome back to They Remade It Again, the short little series where we take another look at a recent addition to a previous series we've already touched on. As always, I'm Stuart,
And I'm Jacob.
and this time we're looking back at Halloween, the 2018 version that is, and the continuation of really just the single original 1978 Halloween. It doesn't take into account any of the sequels.
Oh boy, am I excited for this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know what? That was the one thing that I was curious about because I had to look it up afterwards, even though we saw the movie and we sort of talked about it a little bit over the credits. I really do wonder why they didn't take the second one into account because that is such a direct continuation.
I think maybe it was just to kind of clean up the series, and maybe there was just some weird holdings on that they didn't originally like. Because I know John Carpenter, didn't he not want to do the first sequel?
Well, yeah, I remember you saying that. To be honest, I don't really know of his involvement in it. I don't think he directed it.
I don't think he was involved at all, save for music.
Yeah, I think it was some other guy.
Yeah. So I think that may have been it as to say, this all just kind of adds a bunch of weird plot threads. Let's just kind of keep it straightforward with this one. Because most people, I'd say, would have only seen the original.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I can see that. But the good part about that being is that we're ignoring all of the weird movies that came later, like Curse of Michael Myers and H2O. Those aren't canon in this.
No weird
sort of
Curse of Thorns bullshit.
This invulnerability, he's already sort of invincible. We can see that through his actions. We don't need this weird midichlorians-esque tack on to the series to explain something that we were just willing to accept before.
Yeah, it's just kind of... I never understood the need to have the supernatural thing. There's kind of a vague touching on, like a suggestion of it in this one, but I'll get to that.
Okay, I'm excited to hear about this because maybe my memory's just a bit fuzzy, but I'm not sure where you're going with it.
It's more theorizing than anything, but
Okay, yeah, no, I'm excited for that. But if you want, as we generally do with these, I'm just gonna jump. Generally, with this being the second one, I'm just gonna jump into it.
Go right ahead.
It's October 2018. Two podcasters travel to the hospital where Michael Myers is being held, and after consulting with Dr. Ranbir Sartain, former student of Dr. Loomis, they confront Michael with his mask in an effort to get a reaction from him, but to no avail. The opening credits then play. That's very quickly into that. I'm glad they didn't start out with that, actually. They sort of had a scene leading into it. Anyways.
I like a good cold open.
Yeah. Afterwards, presumably a couple of days later, the two travel to the house of Laurie Strode, a heavily secured facility in the woods of Haddonfield. They obtain an interview with her that is all too short-lived, but it does introduce us to the concept of Laurie having a child and grandchild, who we are then briefly introduced to. This consists of Karen Nelson, Laurie's daughter, played by Judy Greer, her husband Ray Nelson, played by Toby Huss, and their daughter Allison, played by Andy Matichak. Again, if some of these names are a little off the wall to what I know, so apologies if I mispronounce anything. The next night, while being transported to a new facility, Michael escapes and he manages to obtain another mechanic's outfit as well as his signature mask the following day, when he meets up with and kills a man and the two podcasters who just happen to be filling up their car there. Elsewhere, Laurie receives news of the crash and attempts to warn her daughter and son-in-law, but her cries fall on deaf ears. Now, however, comes Halloween night, which, what's a Halloween movie without Halloween? And this is where Allison ends up catching her boyfriend, who I did not mention before because, honestly, who cares? She catches him cheating on her at the school dance, causing her to leave prematurely with his best friend as an escort home. Michael, in the meanwhile, kills multiple individuals while the police get Laurie, Karen, and Ray to Laurie's stronghold. Michael kills Laurie's companion, causing her to flee in terror. The police and Dr. Sartain find her and go out looking for Michael, finding him and running him over. Sartain then kills the cop who threatens to kill Michael and pulls Michael's unconscious body into the car with the both of them, only to have Michael kill him, stopping the car somewhere on a dirt road near the woods. Allison exits the car and flees into the forest. So, Michael manages to kill 2 more police officers and takes their car to Laurie's house, managing to kill Ray in the process, and then he makes his way inside. Karen hides in the basement while Laurie hunts him down, and while the 2 struggle upstairs, Allison then makes it into Laurie's house and also holds up with her mother in the basement. Michael finds the secret entrance to where they're hiding, only to be shot by Karen and attacked from behind by Laurie. The 3 then proceed to trap him down there and light the whole house on fire, fleeing the scene in a passerby's truck bed. So that is the very generalized proceedings of how this movie went down. So probably what I'm most curious with this is where do you want to go from here? What thoughts do you have?
Oh, what thoughts are there to have, other than I actually genuinely love this movie, and
Me too.
and purely for the fact that I like this movie, not because it's a horror. I think as a horror it kind of sucks because I wasn't really scared at any point, but it was a very good action thriller, like a great action thriller. Like it built suspense nicely. It had a dominating and powerful main antagonist. It had cool setup. It had good structure, great shots. Everything about it was just awesome. And plus, just Jamie Lee Curtis is just a stone cold badass when she wants to be. And I think whenever she's in those kind of roles, she does great.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever clapped in a theater because I don't find it appropriate really. But this is one of those movies I kind of wanted to.
Yeah.
I really wanted to cheat. It got me really excited. I agree with the horror aspect of it, though coming from me, things do scare me, mainly horror video games, but horror movies don't really scare me anymore, and I think that's just because I've become desensitized to them. But
right.
This movie is great as a thriller and very suspenseful, because that's the kind of stuff that does get to me is tension. And I think it did a really good job at several key points of getting that tension across.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely was feeling that. I think the very last moment that I had any tension in is when Jamie Lee Curtis is walking around the upstairs of the house where all the lights are off. Yeah, she only has the one light on her. But past that, like, as soon as she starts struggling with him and she has the knife and she tries... Past that point, I felt no tension because it was all action. And it's just that Jones of fighting back something that's... It's been this shape, this shadow for so long. And now we're finally... we're getting action against it.
Mm-hmm. Pretty definitive action. We had that in the original as well, but it wasn't as clear cut as this one. It still felt like in the original that Laurie was more trying to run away still and just kind of attacking him as she went.
Yeah, it's definitely it's more passive in the original ones because it's defense. It still is that very predator and prey sort of deal that especially Dr. Sartain refers to multiple times in the movie, but they really do from the very beginning make it clear that it's no longer a predator-prey sort of situation. It's a predator and another predator fighting one another. Because Laurie makes it clear several times that she wants to kill him herself.
Mm-hmm. And there's a whole lot of direct paralleling scenes between Laurie and Myers, which I thought were really cool. Like, I thought it was awesome near the end where she herself gets injured and thrown off a balcony just the same way Michael is in the original, and then disappears in the exact same way. I just love the implied look on Michael's face, like, huh, when he looks down there.
It's not so funny when it's happening to you, is it?
I thought that was awesome. It's just, so seeing that was really cool. Though we did still kind of get the predator-prey thing with the granddaughter whose name escapes me now.
Yes, with Allison.
Allison, thank you.
So we did definitely, and real quick before we move off of it, because there's not much else to say about that besides the fact that it's hilarious. I was trying to motion to you. I don't know if you got that same feeling, but right before that struggle where she gets thrown off the balcony, it all plays around that closet that sort of opens both ways. And I felt like even if he wasn't in there, that was just a very direct nod to her hiding in that closet, or that
Right.
style of closet in the first one. So
Yeah, I was
already they were alluding to
that whole
previous
sequence.
events. Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking like, I started stretching it a bit in my head that I almost thought that maybe, um, Laurie had ended up having a house of that age, simply for the fact that it looked exactly the same, had the exact same design and features of the house that she was attacked in, so that she could know that point for point, whereas Michael would be basically just going back to his old stomping ground. So now
You know
she has the
what?
advantage on the territory.
That's a good read of that. Yeah, she definitely would be able to divide, now that she knows it's coming, or she prays for it to be coming.
Right.
She can sort of plan a mode of attack. Whereas he's been in there once, what's he going to do? He can explore a little bit, or he can do what he's done before. And
Which,
I mean, granted, he does come up with that, not really a new strategy of hiding in the dark and leaping out, but he still does take her by surprise.
like, he's hiding with the mannequins and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like. He is still very clever, which I do like that they directly allude to that. That he's not just some psychotic killer. He is. I mean, he is a psychotic killer, but he's also pretty clever for a man like him.
Yeah.
Although,
He Sorry.
you go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say he thinks things through. He's psychotic, but he's not stupid. I mean, they point that out in the very beginning too, where the two podcasters are at the facility, and Sartain's like, he's aware. He
Yeah.
noticed you as soon as you arrive. He watched you come in,
Hmm.
so he knows what's going on around him. He's just
And just the
silent and
scene,
methodical.
and just the scene of him just quietly walking around the neighborhood, knocking off a couple people, it just is very big testament to that. Just being like, yeah, these are people I see, and he probably has a whole strategy going through there. He's just like, walk through here. I understand how people work. Go in, stab, hit with hammer, bye.
It's always kind of fun to see him upgrading. Like
Yeah,
throughout
it's
the
always
course
like,
of the movie too, he has the hammer, and then he kills the woman, upgrades to the knife that she was using in the kitchen.
and then gets like the
It's
massive knife from the babysitter's house,
Yeah.
and it's like that was pretty fun. Although, very quickly, just to point out something, like to step back a moment,
Yeah.
we brought this up in the theater. Actually, this is like just as a point. This was one of the first films we've been able to see together for a while. We saw it in the theater,
Oh yeah.
um, and I brought it up in the theater. But what the fuck? What the fuck did Laurie do to have all the resources to have this like next level prepper house?
I don't know. You mentioned like how could she afford this? And I don't know.
The theory
Honestly,
I
I
had,
don't know.
the theory I kind of had when I even brought it up again. I brought it up in the theater. Is that maybe there was like she filed a lawsuit against the sanatorium that held him originally, and for allowing him to escape and all these other prisoners, so she probably got a huge settlement for it because he is at a different mental institution, isn't he, at the beginning than originally?
Well, even if he's not, it sure looks.
Yeah,
Well, we
it's
didn't
at least
see we didn't
upgraded.
see much of it because
Right.
it was dark, but
Good
I
point.
can imagine it. I can imagine that. Which, speaking of which, that shot, not
Oh
even
God,
necessarily the shot, but like the design of the outdoors where all of the sanatorium.
like the inmates are.
Yeah, I hesitated to use the word inmates, but I guess
I mean, that's kind of what it is.
patients.
Yeah,
Where
I
all the
think
patients are like chained up outside. It's like this text. It's like this pattern
it's
on
like
the
a checkered
ground.
pattern,
It looks like a Sonic stage,
right?
kind of like Green Hill Zone.
And it's in the middle of the day, and like I loved what this movie did with light, and like so many modern horror movies just seem obsessed with keeping things in darkness, like especially like even the 2007 Halloween, which I praised, but it was still, even in the middle of the day, there was kind of this weird inky overtone to everything. And this one, it does not shy away from being in completely well lit environments, and they're still tense as hell, and I love it. Like this scene
Oh,
especially, because we just see this massive wide shot of all these prisoners, and then, I should say patients, Um, like of all these patients out in the yard with just Michael standing there chained to the ground, and then the scene of him holding up the mask and it shooting back and forth between all the other reactions. I thought it was great.
They're all shaking, and that dog is barking incessantly.
Right.
They do the same thing at the auto place where the podcast people. They're not in the movie long enough for me to remember their names.
No, they're two British people.
Yeah, the two podcasters that are doing the true crime thing on Michael Myers. Well, that entire thing is in daylight, and they do the cool background shots that I always talk about with horror, where you should be watching the background to see things going on. And I didn't notice it until it was right about to go away. But when the woman is asking the clerk to use the bathroom in the background, there's that shape that's moving up and down, and I didn't realize until the scene was cutting away. I was like, "Oh, that's Michael," stabbing the mechanic.
Right. Or I think he was beating him with like a wrench or something.
Beating him, yeah. But it's so small, and it's deliberately out of focus because that's not what you're supposed to be focusing on. And he's not in his trademark outfit because he's still in his white sanitarium garb.
Right, and he actually kind of blends in with the sky a little bit, so I thought that was a really cool little over the shoulder there.
Yeah, no, that was great.
Yeah, there's such good cinematography on display here. Like from the ending shot of showing Michael standing in the stairway as the fire comes up, and like the light like kind of catches on his eye, since one of them was kind of gouged.
Fire. Oh, you mean in the final shots?
Yeah, and like the final shots, and then at the scene where he kills the best friend character, where there's motion lights in the backyard, and they go off after he's really still, and then all of a sudden he's a little bit closer without having turned on the lights. It's like, oh my god.
Yeah, those
are great, and I love little like tricks like that. The thing did a lot of good tricks for horror, or at least for tense stuff like that.
Though, I do want to get into this a bit. Because we've been praising the movie a lot. I know the reason they did this. That's the point, and it kind of makes the audience side with Michael a bit when he finally gets around to killing him. But I remember in the theater watching that scene with Allison and the best friend, whatever his name is,
the incel.
Oscar. Yeah, Oscar. I remember he went in for that a really awkward kiss, and you audibly groaning and lowering your head.
Yeah, I did. It was so unnecessary.
I said the same thing on the what we watched this week a couple of episodes ago when I watched Jumanji, that I don't know if it's like some weird PTSD flashback from high school, though I didn't go through any of that stuff, but the awkward teenage stuff I cannot deal with.
Yeah,
I have a hard time watching it.
Yeah, it's the secondhand embarrassment, especially with our generation. Secondhand embarrassment seems to be a really big thing.
I guess
because we had so many moments where we're just like, oh god, and that was definitely one of them. It's just like, and I saw it being built up to that when he was complimenting her really profusely and everything. I was like, god damn it. And like,
is this what your character is?
Yeah, and I realized that that happened so that he could get separated from her because she blew him off originally, and so he could get murdered. But still, at a certain point, I have to be like, all right. Yeah. Which, like, if a horror movie's got to have its weird, dumb choices by certain characters, it's got to have them. It may as well keep it modern.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It's just I can't separate the cringe factor. And again, not like high school was the best thing to ever happen to me, but I didn't go through a lot of those experiences with that embarrassment, mainly because I didn't do a whole lot.
Same.
But I still get that feeling, and it's hard for me to watch. Though they did away with him, but the asshole boyfriend who was like macking on the other girl, I was so surprised that he didn't get killed, that they like
he didn't even get brought back up.
He didn't even come close to Michael. Like, they weren't anywhere near each other for the whole movie, so he's alive for the second one.
Yeah, he didn't even show up after the scene of the dance. Like, that was that. He was gone.
Yeah.
And he showed up in several key scenes as well. I was like, what?
Though I did read, which I did not pick up on because it is such a... it seems like a thing where you either had to do a lot of research on it beforehand, or you had to watch the 1978 Halloween 10 times a day. But apparently his character is the son of one of the bullies who bullied Tommy in the first movie. Because they drop his last name. I think it's Elam or Elam or something like that, and that's the last name of one of the bullies in the original movie. So I guess there's like history there, not specifically with him, but with his father. So maybe that's why they kept him around. They'll do something with that.
Right.
Maybe they'll bring Tommy back.
Maybe. I mean, I did theorize at first that one of the people he just randomly killed on, like, as he was walking around was one of the girls that was being babysat, but I don't think that's true. I think that was just a random person he found.
You mean the woman who had that baby? Who you're like, oh no.
Oh no, the other one, like the one right after that where he stabbed her through the neck.
Oh yeah, yeah. He slammed her head on the counter and then got her through the neck. That was nice. See, that's the horror background stuff I'm talking about. Even though there you're supposed to be looking for Michael, where the whole thing is shot through the window of the house and you can see his reflection, and then you can see him walk around the side of the house, and then you don't see him coming through the back, but you see him sort of walk into the room behind her, all with this stationary shot.
Oh yeah,
I like that stuff.
I love little tricks like that, and where you don't even have to move it to give action, which is just really impressive.
Yeah,
there's a lot of just genuine overall skill on display here. I still, for as much as I'm praising it, I should say, I probably wouldn't watch this movie again. Well, maybe I would watch it for the ending, but
I was gonna say I definitely would.
I'd watch it again for the ending at least, maybe like the second half when things really get going, and maybe like the very beginning if only to get that one shot again. But there's a whole lot of just like I said, a lot of just genuine skill. Like the writing is solid. There's not a whole lot of the things that drives a lot of bad horror movies is just stupid people doing stupid things. There's a lot of moments of like people doing completely sensible things where people are reacting in a way you'd think they'd react. Like the moment when Allison is running away from Michael and she's banging on doors trying to get help. In any other horror movie, no one would come out to help her. But in this one, it cuts away from her and it shows her. Next scene we show her, a whole family is outside comforting her and like keeping her safe. It's like, oh,
they gave her like a mug of cocoa or something.
Yeah, and like everyone's out there trying to get concerned. Like they had called up the police and everything. It's like, oh, okay, it's a completely reasonable situation that's been done here. This is actually really interesting. Yeah, it's a nice breath of fresh air.
Michael's not necessarily going to get her.
Right.
Like this is probably what would happen. I mean, even if Michael did show up, I mean, are any of them fighters and are people going to run away? Yeah, but there's like 10 to 15 people there. I think they'd probably try charging him. But yeah. Speaking of which, I do want to praise some of the actors, though. Not even necessarily Jamie Lee Curtis, who is good, but she is like the draw to the movie, really.
That and Michael himself, but that's not the specific actor.
Yeah. It's a Halloween movie.
Right.
One thing I really did want to bring up, I enjoyed Toby Huss a lot.
Remind me.
He played Ray.
Thank you.
So. I did not
doubly clarify. That's Allison's
father,
dad.
Yeah.
Yep.
Jamie Lee Curtis's son-in-law. So, I didn't know who Toby Huss was by looking at him, but when I looked up his name, I immediately knew who he was because I know him as a voice actor. And he's done a lot of stuff, but primarily he's a lot of secondary characters in the Venture Brothers, and. Oh. He's a lot of secondary characters in King of the Hill, mainly Con, the next door neighbor, and Hank's dad, Cotton, the one who got his shins blown off.
Oh yeah.
So that was a pleasant surprise because I think this is the first live action thing I've seen him in where I fully knew, even if afterwards, that it was Toby Huss. But I really did. I liked his performance, even though it was just.
He was destined
to be killed.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, he's not making it out of it. He doesn't have this connection really. He's just there to show that Laurie's daughter can kind of have a normal life.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, he did the protective dad role well. He was funny. He was doing dad jokes at the beginning.
Hmm. Yeah, they were but that definitely was one of those moments where I was just like making a mental checklist. All right, they're doomed, they're doomed, they're doomed. One person who turned out not to be doomed, and in fact, not really in the movie much at all. Who is that one like supervisor character who had the black character with the cowboy hat? He was there and just gone.
Yeah, I don't know who that was. He was just like an officer.
I think he may have been like he was wearing a suit, so it makes me think that maybe he was like a higher up in the state and not necessarily with the police office. But
Possibly.
like,
Okay, I'm looking this up. I looked this up because I do have it written down. I just didn't match the name to the face.
yeah.
So the actor's name is Omar Dorsey, and he plays Sheriff Barker, who is the fill-in sheriff for Brackett, who retired.
Oh, okay.
So he's the new sheriff. Wasn't really in the movie a whole lot. It was mainly following Hawkins.
Yeah.
In the police aspect of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I just remembered that, and I was like, yeah, he's in it for like 2, maybe 3 scenes, and not playing that huge of a character, and then he's just gone. But at the same time, I guess it is also reflective of a more logical, actual situation. The sheriff is probably going to be present in some of these situations, and he was there. We saw him and he was gone.
Yeah, I mean, he's not supposed to be going off on deals like the. It reminds me of that Simpsons bit where Chief Wiggum, they're on some sort of house call, and the officer immediately below him, Lou, is like questioning his authority, and he's like, "You know what? Look, Lou, the chief of police, he doesn't even go out on stuff like this. I'm supposed to be back at the office. You should count yourself lucky." So, I mean, it kind of makes sense that the sheriff isn't really out there. I'm surprised we didn't see more of him, but I didn't really expect him to be killed. I just saw him as an authority figure, like the people Loomis was talking to at the institution. I guess that Malcolm McDowell was talking to at the institution in the Rob Zombie version. They're just higher-ups that don't have much of a connection there.
Yeah, I was just surprised by that. It seems like a lot of these things might be like set up for possible sequel characters.
Oh, definitely. I mean, they have plenty of characters that they can pull from that they decided not to do away with. Yeah.
They don't want to introduce a whole cavalcade of new people to be able to use as fodder.
Yeah.
Which a lot of horror movies do, but I'm glad this one is already taking some steps. If there has to be a sequel, I mean. I don't want there to be one, but I understand there probably will be.
Yeah. The one thing it didn't take me by surprise that she was killed, but I can't say I was too pleased with it, and that was Vicky, who is Allison's best friend.
Oh, she was the other babysitter.
She was the one
lady.
babysitting. Yeah, because the other Halloween movies, they make these teens out to be like terrible asshole characters.
Yeah.
And I mean, she did have her boyfriend over or whatever,
but
she seemed like she seemed like a genuinely good person. She was friends with the kid she was babysitting. She babysits multiple kids. She was taking care of him when he thought he saw something in his room without being a huge asshole about it. I guess she did do that bit where she was pretending to be killed, but
yeah,
I don't know. I liked her.
That's the most of it, yeah. It's like, otherwise, it's like, yeah, I was kind of rooting for her. I knew she was doomed, if only because it shows her being killed in the trailer, but...
Yeah. She did the trademark horror slip when she's running.
Yep.
But I've been there wearing socks on hardwood, You'll fall.
Yeah. At least that one was like a sensible slip. Like sometimes you'll just see him slip and it's out of nowhere. And this one it's like, oh yeah, she's wearing socks on hardwood. She wouldn't have thought she was going to have to run right now, so.
Yeah, they're wearing lumberjack boots out in the middle of the forest and they just slip and fall.
Yeah.
It was muddy.
It's like, then you should have known that. But yeah, one other little point that I want to bring up, since you also were interested in it. Do you think there is a supernatural element to this? Because I had the kind of theory, like I even brought it up after we saw it together, when that first big shot out in the yard with Michael and the podcasters, when he pulls out his mask and shows it and trying to get a reaction out of Michael, everybody, all the inmates in the yard and the guard dog all start reacting to it. Like there's all of a sudden like just some big force. You can feel like the soundtrack puts in like some background white noise that you can kind of detect. Um, and like I kind of started to think, oh, maybe these inmates, since they're insane, they're able to pick up on some deeper force that's already affected them, or since they've known Michael for so long, they can just feel something emanating from him, or that Michael just gives off such a presence, he just naturally scares people who are more attuned to that sort of thing.
You
I just
know,
wasn't sure that like, and then there was also the moment later when the doctor kills Hawkins in protection of Michael, and then himself briefly puts on the mask. I was semi-convinced for a second that, as they imply that Michael could have been killed by the hit and run, that um, all of a sudden either the doctor was actually Michael and they had somehow pulled some insane switch, or that the mask itself had kind of taken over his psyche in some way. I wouldn't have wanted that because I think that's in all, that's kind of a stupid concept. But for a second, I thought that could have been a thing since it had so early on implied that the mask itself had a power.
yeah, I'm not really sure if it's the mask or if it's some sort of connection between them, because
Mm-hmm.
another sort of potential supernatural thing that they brought up is this harkening back to some sort of specific connection with Michael to Judith outside of them being siblings. Um,
Mm-hmm.
because I mean, not only did he kill her, but that's the tombstone that he steals in the original Halloween.
Yep.
Um, and also when they're in the car, Allison and I keep forgetting his name, the doctor, the new the new Loomis, Sartain, and
Yeah.
Michael's unconscious body. Him saying Judith is what sort of like un unconsciousness him,
Yeah, like kind of
brings
rouses
him
him.
awake. Yeah, and then he like immediately kills him. So I'm wondering if they're implying something there that has that driving force
Mm-hmm.
as well. And if there is some sort of supernatural element to it, I'm fine with that. I just don't want them to like go into
The
specifics
logistics of
of
it.
yeah, why it's there or why he would have this ability,
Yeah,
because I
because
don't I don't care.
he does take a hellish amount of punishment, and I just kind of assumed at this point, like even kind of has that later when he gets a couple of his fingers blown off, like right after the fact, he's barely bleeding from that wound. It's like Jesus Christ. Like in any other situation, it'd be spurting blood, and even in a natural situation. But you see a couple like errant like drops come from it as it shows like in full silhouette the wound, but it's just otherwise he just keeps on trucking even after taking a bullet I think to the face near the end.
Yeah, I thought it was either his face or his shoulder, but I remember seeing blood, and that's the important thing.
Right.
Um,
I think it may have been his neck.
yeah, some way that's the middle ground. I guess if we can't agree, we'll have to say Nick.
Because I don't remember seeing a hole in his mask right before he ends up. It shows him in the burning basement.
Yeah, and I mean, if we're really gonna pull that stop out, literally seen before we go into the credits is that staircase, but from the other side where everything's on fire and he's nowhere to be seen. And then
Mm-hmm.
you hear his breathing over the credits, like especially really heavily near the very end of the credits. So, I
Yeah.
mean, that's implied along with the fact that they're in pre-production on the second one, that he's still out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they'll probably go somewhere from that. I have no idea how they'll get out of that one, but whatever.
I'm worried that they're going to bring the supernatural stuff into it, like explaining it, to get themselves out of that one. Because the only other thing they could do is like what they go back to the house and it's like, oh, he cartoonishly walked through the wall over here. You can see his outline. I don't know what they would do.
I think maybe like it would imply that he was able to get into some area in the basement where he could hide from the fire, and then maybe he just suffers some burns. I think it'd be really cool if like the mask itself starts to like burn and melt around his face.
That would be cool. They did that in Friday the 13th. I don't remember
Oh,
what one it is. It could have been Jason Takes Manhattan or Jason Goes to Hell, one of those. The
is that
mask
the
is
one where
like
it's like starts
fused
to,
to
like
his face.
like his body is still growing around, and so it's just growing around the mat. I think that was Jason Goes to Hell.
Yeah, and I mean he's dead and starts possessing people in that one, but it
Hmm.
was probably that one. But yeah, the mask like grows with him, and throughout the years, the Michael mask changes with
Yeah.
the Halloween movies. I'm sure you've seen that chart that shows all the different years that all the different Halloween movies came out, and it shows what Michael looked like.
Yeah.
But that's less like analyzing the mask and Michael's being, and more so just they're grabbing different bleached Shatner masks
Yeah.
or ones
That
in
oh
similar vein that they can use, and that's why they all look the same but different.
yeah. So I think there's only so much you can do on that one.
Yeah, but no, that'd be cool if it like was all if it was burnt and it was like fused to him, because there'll be even more connection there, and
Which
I don't
like
know,
I
that
feel like
make him more monstrous.
it might take away from his character as a whole, because the whole point of him is that he's meant to just be kind of eerie and looming, but then like he just kind of seems like a weird guy just standing around in a costume, or at least just a mask. But then with this, it's like, oh no, now he's actually a monster.
Yeah, I still think with the second one that they can have him like looming in the distance or in the darkness as the shape, but I feel like they did throw a lot of that away with how action packed the ending was.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't okay. I pieced it together in my head when I saw the movie, but I didn't fully realize it until literally just now. But like the final thing in the movie, if we're talking about allusions to Michael's being, is Laurie herself hiding in the darkness the way Michael does and then attacking him.
Oh yeah, that was cool.
Like she is the shape now.
Yeah, which it continues with the parallel thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, and then she clobbers him in the head. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know. He can still be he can still be a terror and kill people and loom, as you might
Right.
say, but I do think that they got rid of some of that with the full-on assault that they gave him.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to come back from that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. All in all, though, I still think I still love that last scene. I mean, like
Yeah,
we
it's
talked.
what I've been thinking about the past what, 2 or 3 days since we saw it.
Yeah, and like we had talked about it there, but it was so cool just seeing this last scene involving 3 generations of women all being these stone cold badasses taking
Yes.
down this killer. It's like, all right, this is awesome, and like a whole lot of levels.
They all contributed. I'll pull into that a little bit. So Lori had her full redemptive arc. Not really redemptive, but it sort of came full circle for her because she was finally able to take out all this frustration and get revenge on Michael. Um,
Hmm.
Karen sort of connected her mother's paranoia to the real world, and I felt came to accept her.
Hmm.
Even being able to shoot Michael with her gun that she trained with as a child. It had her initials on it. Um,
Yep.
and then we get down to Allison, who both of them have been trying to protect this whole time. In the final scene where he's grabbing onto Karen's ankle, trying to pull her back into the basement, they're telling Allison to run, but instead she grabs his knife and continues to stab him until he lets go. So they all kind of have little closes to their own personal story there,
Hmm.
and then
I'm
they burn him.
surprised. I am surprised at how little of a direct part Allison ended up having. Like it seemed like it should have been more the direct daughter's story than it seemed like it was more focused on Allison.
It should have, but they had to get in the teenage stuff because
Good point.
they're focusing on Lori, of course, but she's not a teenager anymore. She's a grandma, and since it's a slasher movie, you got to get the teenagers in there.
Of course.
So I feel like that is the reason that she was there at all,
Hmm.
and I guess she is the bridge to her grandmother, since Karen, at least for the first half of the movie, wants nothing to do with her anymore. She's like, I've tried, it hasn't worked. I am so done.
Hmm. Yeah, I guess that explains it.
Yeah. I had
Oh.
one more point. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Seeing this in theaters, I think, was the best possible move. I'm
Yes.
so glad that I saw this in theaters.
Yes.
before like being able to get the DVD, not just because it was a great movie with great action, but it feels like you're being a part of this legacy.
Oh, for sure.
And they did a really good job with that, specifically with the opening title credits. They had the same thing with the pumpkin, but this time it was a rotted pumpkin, like shot in reverse.
Right, as it like shows it like going from rotted to not rotted.
Yeah, so you have that there, but they have the iconic music, the color and the font of all the actual credits themselves mirror that of the 78 Halloween. It really felt like not that we were there seeing the original Halloween, but that this was the next possible or the next logical step. Oh, I can't talk.
I love that the credits themselves had a light glow to them, kind of simulating how the text back then looked simply because of the film quality.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of nice.
This was great. One question I wanted to pose, not really much of a comment, but do you know what... Did the Loomis guy... Not the Loomis guy, but Loomis himself, did he sound enough like Donald Pleasance to you? Because whoever was doing that...
The brief recording that we hear?
Yeah, whoever was doing that voice was doing an okay job, but I could tell... I mean, logically I knew, but I could also tell that it wasn't Donald Pleasance.
I mean, I didn't really remember Donald Pleasance... excuse me. I didn't really remember Donald Pleasance's voice too well to begin with, but when I heard that, it was like, yeah, that's definitely not him. And so, like, I think that kind of answers itself. I think it did enough of a job that it told us what we needed to know about the situation, but otherwise I was like, eh.
Yeah, I mean, it did catch me off guard to begin with. As soon as it started, I was like, wait, is that? And then I'm like, no, he's been dead for, like, over 10 years.
Yeah.
And then maybe it was that slowly was like, oh, yeah, no, this isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that that's a gripe I had, but it was definitely something I noticed, but I didn't bring up.
Right.
So.
Gotcha.
So we already talked about favorite shots. Like literally, I think that was half of this. Episode was us talking about favorite shots.
We've got plenty. I don't think I even have a definitive one. This one's a very well shot movie.
So this isn't really a remake, but neither was Ocean's 8. So I think we're going to continue with this. How did it stack up with the others, do you think? Because personally, I think I like this one more than any of the other Halloweens that I've seen.
Oh yeah, same. I was going to say the same. I think it is. I think in this case it would be an overdue sequel.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's definitely better than the other ones. Better action, better tension in a lot of ways, just better quality. Like I always boil down to how well made is the film itself, and I thought it was amazingly well made. I think just definitively this one's the best of the three that we have seen at least.
I think this is a great follow-up to the original Halloween, but I think as a movie it does what it does better than the other two do.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
that's
it has its goal and it gets out there and it fucking does it.
I'm placing my vote for the new Halloween.
Woo! I kind of hope I don't really want another sequel, but I understand how Hollywood works, so we might be right back to this next time. Although we probably won't, because it won't be an overdue sequel that time.
You know what? It won't.
We're done with the series.
We can give passing thoughts on it if we want. Because, since this is the short series, we can touch it if we want.
I guess so.
We can violate those rules if we so wish. But that'll be up to us when the time comes. Either way, I think after the experience I had with this one, I'll definitely be seeing that one in theaters.
Yes. So, yeah, I'm satisfied.
Yep, me too. All right, you want to...
sign us out now? Or
yeah.
Yeah, I think. It's a shorter episode. We don't have to do the usual sign-offs. So,
yeah.
I'm your host, Stuart.
And I'm Jacob.
Thank you for listening. Have a good evening.
Testing 1, 2, 3. We're on.
We're here to investigate a patient that killed 3 innocent teenagers on a Halloween in 1978. He was shot by his own psychiatrist and taken into custody that night. and has spent the last 40 years in captivity. Hello, Michael. I have something you might like to see.